Hello, good morning everybody. Welcome to our YouTube channel. I hope I am audible, and if I'm audible and visible, just let me know. Just put in the comment box whether I am audible and visible or not. Okay, thank you so much. Right, so we're gonna begin our session, right? So the most important news that we have right now, let's say Supreme Court refuses to stay release of Bihar caste survey data. Now, I think everybody is aware of this particular issue, right? That not the issue, that is the development that has taken place, where when we talk about Bihar, they have now, let's say, announced their or released their caste-based survey that they conducted, and it was released on 2nd of October, right, on the day of Gandhi Jayanti. Now, there were certain reports that came out from this particular caste survey data. We have already discussed that particular thing. Now, let's try to revise and let's say have a let's say एक तरह से फिर से गो थ्रू हो जाते हैं क्या क्या चीजें हमने इसके अंदर पढ़ी थी. पहली चीज जो हमने सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट पढ़ी थी, अगर हम कह सकते हैं रिलेटेड टू बिहार कास्ट सर्वे डेटा वाज that if we talk about OBCs, if we talk about let's say extremely OBCs जो बहुत ज्यादा backward हैं, then we talk about SCs and STs, they comprise almost around 84% of the population of the Bihar, and rest 16% goes to the unreserved category. So that basically brings a call कि अगर यहाँ पे बाकी जो ग्रुप्स हैं अगेंस्ट द अनरिजर्व्ड कैटेगरी, अगर उनकी रिप्रेजेंटेशन लेट्स से population ज़्यादा है, तो there has to be an adequate representation in correspondence to their population. So this brings a debate that this might leads to what we say that increase in the limit that has been defined or defined for the reservation category, that it's gonna go beyond the 50% mark, right? क्योंकि population अगर हम बात करें बहुत ज़्यादा है against the unreserved category. So here the things are related to political representation, एजुकेशनल रिप्रेजेंटेशन और रिजर्वेशन अगर हम बात कर सकते हैं इन दोनों कंटेक्स्ट के अंदर. सो दीज आर द टू पॉइंट्स दैट आर वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट व्हेन आई टॉक अबाउट अगर हम बिहार कास्ट सर्वे की बात करते हैं. एंड नाउ देयर हैव बीन कॉल फ्रॉम द ऑपोजिशन पार्टीज एज वेल. ऑपोजिशन पार्टीज भी यही बोल रही हैं कि बाकी स्टेट्स के अंदर भी ऐसे ही कास्ट सर्वे डेटा होना चाहिए, कास्ट सर्वे होने चाहिए, ताकि बेटर एक पिक्चर पता चल सके कि अभी भी कितने हमारे अगर देश के अंदर और स्टेट वाइज कितनी कैटेगरीज हैं जो ओबीसी के अंदर आती हैं, या कितनी कैटेगरीज कम्स अंडर एससी एंड एसटी, एंड देन वी कैन हैव प्रॉपर एडिक्वेट रिप्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ दोस पीपल, सो दैट over the period of time we can bring their social upliftment, we can bring their economic upliftment, and in this particular process we would be able to uplift their political upliftment as well. So these are the points that are very important that we have to understand when I talk about Bihar caste survey data. I think this point is absolutely clear to you, है ना? ये हमने पहले भी डिस्कस किया था. और अगर हम रिलीजन वाइज बात करें तो सबसे ज्यादा पॉपुलेशन किसकी है? हिंदूज की, फॉलोड बाय मुस्लिम्स, देन वी हैव बुद्धिस्ट, सिख्स एंड क्रिश्चियंस, राइट? सो दिस इज द वे द पॉपुलेशन हैज बीन देयर इन वी टॉक अबाउट इन द स्टेट ऑफ बिहार. ओके, नाउ मूविंग टू द नेक्स्ट पार्ट. नाउ आई थिंक सबको पता है कि नोबेल पीस प्राइज दिए जा रहे हैं, राइट? सो वी हैड yesterday we discussed about chemistry where the Nobel Prize has been given to a research related to quantum dots, right? If you remember yesterday we discussed कि quantum dots के अंदर there are certain atoms which are very much closely packed. As a result, their behavior changes according to their size. So that was the thing that we discussed very much in detail when I talk about quantum dots. तो quantum dots के ऊपर हमने बहुत ज़्यादा discussions किए थे और इनको बहुत ही elaborate manner में discuss किया था कि quantum dots क्या होते हैं. And because it is a very important study that has been undertaken, so they have been given the Nobel Prize for the quantum dots. Similarly, when I talk about in the field of physiology or medicine, Nobel Peace Prize has been given for development of mRNA vaccine, right? But उसका एक सबसे बड़ा आर्टिकल था जो हमने डिस्कस किया था कि वेदर जो वो मेडिसिन बन रही है mRNA वैक्सीन बनी, बहुत अच्छी बात है, बट क्या वो उन कंट्रीज तक पहुंची जहां तक उनकी रिक्वायरमेंट थी? सो दैट वाज अ बिग क्वेश्चन मार्क दैट वाज डिस्कस्ड इन द एडिटोरियल एज वेल, दैट टॉक्ड अबाउट एथिक्स की अगर हम बात करते हैं कि एथिकल पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से वेदर इट वाज गुड और नॉट, राइट? सो दीज आर द इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग्स दैट वी हैव बीन डिस्कस्ड, और लेट्स से डिस्कस इन कंटेक्स्ट ऑफ नोबेल प्राइज. नाउ as you can see over here, Nobel Peace Prize for 2023 has gone to jailed Iranian activist Nargis Mohammadi. Now, one of the important things we have to understand is that she is the second woman after, let's say, the second Iranian woman who has got this Nobel Peace Prize. The first one was, let's say, Shirin Ebadi, who won the award in 2003. So these are certain facts that we guys need to remember because these are very important. And the second woman of Iran who has got the Nobel Peace Prize is Narges Mohammadi, and she has been campaigning for women rights in Iran and for the establishment of democracy and against the death penalty, right? So these are the three major issues when we talk about Iran as a country, that there are very harsh penalties that is there. Let's say जब हम डेथ पेनल्टी की बात करते हैं, डेमोक्रेसी की बात करते हैं, and when we talk about women rights, so there are a lot of problems in the state of Iran. So these are the areas where this woman has been, let's say, defending the rights of the women, and she has been jailed so many times, and the Nobel Peace Prize has gone to this particular lady, as you can see over here, Narges Mohammadi, and she is the second Iranian lady after Shirin Ebadi who has won this Nobel Peace Prize. So these are the certain facts that you guys need to remember, because we never know, UPSC might ask these questions, or you can get these questions in your state PCS exams as well. So in that particular context, these important let's say names, the Nobel Peace Prize becomes very, very important, right? Okay. Now moving to the next part, okay, now let's directly go to the editorial page and discuss a very important editorial that is right now very much important, and it brings a very much interesting insight into a particular topic, right? So let's try to discuss that particular topic. It is aligning higher education with United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Now this is a very interesting topic. Here they are talking about higher education and with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Now let's try to integrate the topic of higher education and sustainable development goals. So we're going to discuss all those sustainable development goals that are there. I hope everyone knows that there are 17 sustainable development goals with 169 indicators that needs to be achieved by 2030. So let me give you a little bit, let's say, brief background related to sustainable development goals, right? Now when I talk about sustainable development goals, first of all, we need to understand from where this whole concept of sustainable development has got into the limelight. So for that, we need to go a little back in history, and let's try to understand the whole focus of sustainable development. So I'm going to give you a little bit timeline and a mind map so that you guys are able to remember the concept of sustainable development, right? So let's try to understand. First of all, let's make a timeline like this, right? The first thing that happened was in 1987, when there was a report from Brundtland Commission, very important. So there was this report from Brundtland Commission that talked about sustainable development. So it was a report by the name of Our Common Future that talked about sustainable development. So it was in the year 1987. I hope you guys can remember this particular fact. Now the next important fact that you need to understand is, in 1992 there was a major Earth Summit, or we can say there was a United Nations conference that basically focused on the boiling issues that were there at that particular moment of time. So there was in 1992 Earth Summit, or we can also call it as Rio Summit, right? Because it happened in Rio de Janeiro. It is also known as Rio Summit. So this Rio Summit highlighted many issues, right? It talked about climate change, it talked about sustainable development, it talked about, let's say, desertification, and one of the another thing that they talked about was sustainable development, very important. So the major issue that they picked was sustainable development, and from this particular Earth Summit there was a new thing that was evolved, that was Agenda 21. Now what was this Agenda 21? Now Agenda 21 talks about sustainable development for the 21st century. So this was a particular aim of Agenda 21, that was sustainable development for 21st century. So this was the most important thing that you need to understand. Here it highlighted that going forward in our, let's say, developmental decades, we need to focus on sustainable development, and that's what it was related to, that is sustainable development for the 21st century. Now coming to the year 2000, there was a United Nations conference where they highlighted certain goals, very important. Those goals were Millennium Development Goals, right? I hope You guys remember this? Millennium Development Goals. These were total 8 in number that were to be achieved by 2015. Very important. 8 goals to be achieved by 2015. So this is the timeline that is evolving when I talk about sustainable development goals. So they came in the form of Millennium Development Goals. After that, there was 2012 Rio Plus 20. So after 20 years, there was another summit, Earth Summit, Rio Plus 20, that happened again in Rio de Janeiro, where they talked about, yes, we need to focus on sustainable development. पहली चीज. दूसरी चीज जो बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट थी कि अब मिलेनियम डेवलपमेंट गोल्स पूरे हो जाएंगे 2015 तक. अब उसके बाद हमारा framework of action क्या होगा? What shall be our future course of action? So there they formed a particular political forum on sustainable development, that was United Nations Political Forum on Sustainable Development. And within, next say, in 2015, there was a United Nations conference in New York where they said we need to focus on Agenda 2030. Now this Agenda 2030 talked about what we are just now discussing, sustainable development goals that have to be achieved, that are total 17, let's say, goals, and total indicators are 169. So this is a story that you need to learn and you need to revise as well, because this is very important, and we see a lot of questions that come from the background of sustainable development, and you need to remember this particular timeline. It all started with Brundtland Commission 1987, culminating into Agenda 2030. That is what is our future course of action. That is what countries are after. That is what countries are trying to achieve. That is sustainable development goals and their indicators. And I'm telling you this, maybe down the lane, 1 year or 2 years, let's say forward, there might be a question in UPSC mains examination that whether we would be able to achieve sustainable development goals by 2030 or not. So this could be a potential mains question, and mark my words, this could be a potential mains question. Now, the whole article talked about, that was linking higher education to sustainable development goals. So this was the article. Now let's try to understand the article, what they are trying to say over here. That is, they are saying कि अगर हम हायर एजुकेशन के ऊपर फोकस करेंगे ना, तो ये जितने सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल्स है 17, ये कहीं ना कहीं हम अचीव कर सकते हैं. सो दे आर इन जस्ट अलाइनमेंट व्हेन आई टॉक अबाउट दिस हायर एजुकेशन विद द सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल्स. नाउ यू वुड बी वंडरिंग हाउ देयर इज अ लिंकेज between this higher education and sustainable development goals. So let's try to look at the 17 sustainable development goals that we have. Okay, now I hope everybody is able to see this particular goals. It is visible on your screens, right? Are you able to see, or shall I enlarge this particular thing? I hope you are able to see this 17 sustainable development goals over here. Hanji. Yes, very good. Now let's try to understand. Now when I talk about higher education, now one of the thing you need to understand is कि अभी जब हम बात करते हैं ना, let's say एजुकेशन को बढ़िया बनाने के लिए हमने क्या किया, हम एक न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी लेके आए 2020 के अंदर, राइट? आई होप एवरीबॉडी इज अवेयर ऑफ दैट नेशनल एजुकेशन पॉलिसी 2020 दैट क्वाइट हैज अ फोकस ऑन हायर एजुकेशन. इट्स मेन फोकस इज ऑन हायर एजुकेशन. इसके ऊपर हमने पहले भी काफी बार डिबेट करी है कि कुछ स्टेट्स हैं जो इंप्लीमेंट कर रही हैं, कुछ स्टेट्स हैं जो इसको इंप्लीमेंट नहीं कर रहे हैं, राइट? सो दिस इज अ पर्टिकुलर थिंग दैट वी नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड, बट दिस इज वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग, राइट? नाउ लेट्स से अगर कोई पर्सन है जो ज्यादा हायर एजुकेटेड है, जिसकी एजुकेशन क्या बहुत ज्यादा अच्छी है, तो क्या उसका ज्यादा चांस नहीं है कि उसको नौकरी मिलेगी? यस और नो? They would have a better chance that they would be able to get the employment. If they would be able to get the employment, that basically serves our purpose of sustainable development goal number 1, that is no poverty. Obviously poverty से वो दूर चले जाएंगे. Second, अगर उनके पास खाने को पैसा है तो obviously बात है, अगर हम hunger की बात करते हैं, that will be obviously fulfilled in the upcoming future. Yes, that is also a case. Now when I talk about third point, good health and well-being, if you are able to know that you have studied and you have a higher education, you know what you have to eat, what you don't have to eat, what is the parameters of good health, and you would be able to maintain your good health and well-being. Yes, obviously you would be able to have the good health and well-being. Then comes to quality education. I hope this is quite evident. कि अब हायर एजुकेशन की बात कर रहे हैं, सो हियर द होल फोकस इज कि जो पहले हमारा सिस्टम था एजुकेशन को लेके, दैट फोकस्ड ऑन रोट लर्निंग, राइट, इट डजंट हैड अ प्रैक्टिकल एप्लीकेशन, बट नाउ द थिंग्स आर बीइंग चेंजिंग, देयर द फोकस इज ऑन practicality of the education, and as a result it will bring in a certain change in our whole education ecosystem, and that will lead to the quality education. So these 4 SDGs are directly linked to higher education, plus it will also ensure gender equality, that is quite evident as well, कि अगर वुमेन को भी अलाउड किया जाए, वुमेन भी हायर एजुकेशन में अच्छा कर रही है, ऑब्वियसली ओवर द पीरियड ऑफ टाइम इट विल ट्राई टू अचीव अ जेंडर बैलेंस एंड देयर वुड बी जेंडर इक्वालिटी. नाउ मूविंग टू द नेक्स्ट पार्ट. Now, if we talk about 6th sustainable development goal, let's say 6th है clean water and sanitation, 7th की अगर मैं बात करूं, okay, let's say 6th is related to clean water and sanitation, 7th is related to affordable and clean energy, 8th is decent work and economic growth, 9th is industry innovation and infrastructure, 10th is reduced inequalities, 11th is sustainable cities and communities, 12th is responsible consumption and production. अब एक बात बताओ, जिसने हायर एजुकेशन करी है, that has the practicality, let's say who is skill ready, won't a person would be able to find innovative solutions, won't a person would be finding innovative solutions to clean water, to responsible consumption, to sustainable cities, to industry innovation and infrastructure, he would be able to find a decent work and achieve, or let's say participate in the economic growth. So these are what? These are quite interlinking if we talk about and relate the higher education with sustainable development goals. Now moving forward, then obviously if a person is well qualified, if it has certain knowledge, then they can have certain solutions for climate change, they can have a certain solutions for, let's say, maintaining the aquatic ecosystem, terrestrial ecosystem, and finally they would be able to, let's say, work for the peace, work for the strong institutions, and over the period of time they can also help in achieving us the partnership for the goals. So the thing over here that is most evident is कि अगर तुम क्वालिटी एजुकेशन देते हो और हम एक ऐसी ह्यूमन कैपिटल बनाते हैं, then obviously it can help us in achieving all of these 17 sustainable development goals. That is in itself a true and a remarkable feature. But the point that we have to understand is that one thing that is very important is that this education has to be very much qualitative in nature, not quantitative wise, but qualitative in nature, so that we are able to achieve these particular goals. I hope you are able to understand this particular editorial, and you are able to link when this particular question comes in your exams, that how higher education can help us in achieving sustainable development goals. You have a ready-made fodder material that you can write in your answers. Okay guys, now moving to the next part. ठीक है, this we have discussed, there was nothing important over here, right? ये case study है कि एक बिहार में एक विलेज है जो मिनी पंजाब बनता जा रहा है. Now this you can take an example in your answers when you are writing answers on society, that how caste discrimination, exploitation of people result in people getting converted into another religion where there is equality among all the people. That is why we have seen a lot of people from the Dalits from Araria district in Bihar are now being migrated to Punjab, and now they have also converted to Sikhism as well, in the hope that the people would respect them and they would be free from the caste based exploitation. So this brings into a very much important, let's say, nuance, that is कि लोगों की माइग्रेशन का एक बड़ा कारण ये भी है कि लोग ज्यादातर क्या हो रहे हैं, because they are suffering from the disabilities that are imposed on them based on their caste. As a result, people are migrating to new places and they are trying to seek respect. As a result, they are converting to other religions. So here you can add these points in your answers, and you can put this case study in your answers as well. If you try to relate these type of case studies in your answers, I am definitely betting on this, you would be scoring a little above the other student who is writing the main as well. देखो यही चीजों का फर्क पड़ता है जब हम मेंस एग्जामिनेशन लिखते हैं कि आप अपने कितने पॉइंट्स को हाईलाइट कर सकते हो और कितना रियल लाइफ को यूज करके आप अपने आंसर्स के अंदर पोर्ट्रे कर सकते हो, राइट? ओके, चलिए, ये वही चल रही है हमारी पॉलिटिकल न्यूज, राइट? Professor Swaminathan's contribution will continue to inspire and guide us. This is the thing that we understand, that before independence, what was our situation? We were suffering from, let's say, famines, we were suffering from poverty, our agriculture sector was in distress, our economic sector was in distress, there was no industrialization, there was deindustrialization. All was due to the policies of the British, that they had imposed such disabilities on us, and when they left us, we were, let's say, a very poor country. We didn't have enough, let's say, food grains so that we can feed our ever increasing population. But this was a turning point when MS Swaminathan was quite hurt by the famine of 1943. As a result, he undertook that a particular oath that he will not let people die due to famine. As a result, MS Swaminathan brought in a green revolution when it was absolutely required in our country, because of the way 5-year plans were not able to achieve what we had thought that we would be able to achieve, let's say, in the terms of agriculture sector. So that was the time when the experiment was taken and we were able to achieve self-sufficiency in food grains, right? So this is the important contribution. I think सबको पता है, और भी हमने काफी ज्यादा contributions discuss किए थे. When I talk about MS Swaminathan, his conservation measures related to mangrove conservation, mangrove ecosystem को, genetic diversity को, biodiversity को, so all the things that we have already discussed related to MS Swaminathan. अब ये ना बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग चीज है, ये ना पहले भी हाईलाइट हुई थी, शायद आपको याद होगा. एमजी नरेगा की जब हम बात करते हैं, ठीक है, बहुत सारे स्टूडेंट ऐसे मनरेगा बोलते रहते हैं. मनरेगा नहीं है, पहली बात तो एमजी नरेगा है, महात्मा गांधी नेशनल रूरल एम्प्लॉयमेंट गारंटी स्कीम. सो इसके अंदर आपको एक चीज पता होनी चाहिए कि ये ना एक डिमांड बेस्ड स्कीम है, कि जितना काम होगा लोगों के पास उतना आपको पैसा चाहिए होगा ताकि आप प्रोवाइड कर सको और उतना आप कम करवा सको, राइट? अगर डिमांड ही नहीं होगी काम की तो आप काम किससे करवाओगे? सो दिस इज द इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड. इट इज अ डिमांड ड्रिवन स्कीम, राइट? सो यू कैन राइट ओवर हियर एज वेल, इट इज अ डिमांड driven scheme. So this thing is quite evident, right? Now one of the thing you need to understand is there are certain problems associated with MGNREGA, right? अगर हम MGNREGA की बात करते हैं तो सबसे बड़ी प्रॉब्लम क्या है? एक तो सबसे बड़ी प्रॉब्लम है कि फंड्स में कटौती हो रही है. There have been reduction in the funds that have been allocated in the budget, पहली चीज. दूसरा, जितने फंड्स आते भी हैं वो भी टाइमली रिलीज नहीं होते, दूसरी चीज. तीसरी चीज, स्टेट से जो एप्रोप्रिएशन होनी चाहिए MGNREGA के लिए उसमें बहुत ज्यादा करप्शन है. तीसरी चीज, सोशल ऑडिटिंग के लिए बहुत प्रॉब्लम आ जाती है क्योंकि मिस एप्रोप्रिएशन ऑफ फंड्स है. चौथी चीज जो है, वर्कर्स आर नॉट एबल टू गेट देयर वेजेस ऑन टाइम. दिस इज द फोर्थ थिंग. Fifth thing you need to understand is government has introduced national mobile monitoring software, according to which people have to mark their attendance 2 times a day. That is through digital, right? It would be a supervisor or a mate that would be recording the attendance of the people in 2 shifts when they have worked for a, let's say, a particular period of time. So that is also one of the concerns that is now highlighted with MGNREGA. So these are quite 5 concerns that you can write in your answers as well when you talk about the efficiency of MGNREGA and the problems, or critically analyze the MGNREGA scheme. So you can write कि फंड्स में कटौती हुई है, प्रॉपर टाइमली रिलीज नहीं हो रहे फंड्स. अगर हम बात करें सेंटर से, स्टेट से मिस एप्रोप्रिएशन होता है, वेज वर्कर्स को टाइमली वेजेस नहीं मिल पा रही हैं, और अटेंडेंस का भी इशू आ रहा है जिसकी वजह से पीपल आर नाउ मूविंग अवे फ्रॉम MGNREGA. ओके, नाउ दिस इज द इंटरेस्टिंग न्यूज, वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. 2 out of 5 amphibians are facing extinction threat due to climate change. Now this is very important. I think ये हमको evident ही है कि अगर climate change हो रहा है तो सबसे बड़ा problem क्या आता है कि अनसीजनल आपको रेनफॉल देखने को मिलेगी, फ्लड्स देखने को मिलेंगे, ड्रॉट्स देखने को मिलेंगे. दैट चेंजेस द होल हैबिटेट of the particular species. That habitat loss, fragmentation, destruction of habitat, overexploitation somehow leads to the, let's say, threat on these particular amphibians. As you can see, a new study that is ongoing declines for the world's amphibians in the face of emerging threats have said that 2 out of 5 amphibians are facing extinction threat due to climate change. So this is the point that you need to understand. And one thing you need to note is you can write this in your answers as well when you're talking about biodiversity, that what are the impacts of climate change on biodiversity. So there was a direct question 2022 mains, what is global warming and what are the impacts of climate change. So when you have to write the impacts of climate change, this is the impact that you have to write, and these are the case studies that you can mention in your answers that would boost your answers. So that is why I say न्यूज़पेपर रीडिंग इतनी जरूरी क्यों है, क्योंकि बाकी बच्चे नॉर्मल बेसिक आंसर लिख के आएंगे, लेमैन आंसर, बट यू कैन राइज अबव ऑल फ्रॉम दोज एवरेज स्टूडेंट्स एंड यू कैन राइट दिस पर्टिकुलर थिंग इन योर आंसर्स. दैट्स गोना हेल्प यू अ लॉट. ओके, so I think that was the important thing that was there in today's newspaper. Nothing more important over here. और हमें आपको पता ही होगा कि मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी कमेटी ने रेपो रेट कितना रखा है, अनचेंज किया है, एंड दे हैव केप्ट इट एट 6.5%. आई होप यू ऑल आर अवेयर ऑफ व्हाट इज रेपो रेट. हाँ जी, कमेंट बॉक्स पे आप लिखना चाहे तो लिख सकते हैं रेपो रेट क्या होता है. बट रेपो रेट वो रेट है जिसके ऊपर आरबीआई लेंड करती है कमर्शियल बैंक को शॉर्ट टर्म पीरियड के लिए, सो दैट दे आर एबल टू टारगेट द इन्फ्लेशन. And when I talk about monetary policy, it is being framed by Monetary Policy Committee that has 6 members in totality. Earlier, it used to be the prerogative of only the RBI, but now there has been a certain change in the constitution of Monetary Policy Committee, and now there is a 6-member committee. 3 members are from RBI, and rest we have different members. I hope this point is clear to everybody, and we are on the verge that we're gonna achieve 100 gold medal, let's say overall total of medals that we're gonna achieve at Asian Games. So that is a quite big achievement for all our athletes that who have participated in the ongoing Asian Games in Hangzhou. Right. So this is it, guys. If you have any doubt, you can ask me, and I would be happy to solve your doubts. Otherwise, we're gonna conclude our class, and let's. हाँ जी. If you have any doubt, you can ask me, and then I'm gonna conclude our class. Okay. If you have any doubt, you can ask me. So पंजाब PCS बच्चा, पंजाब PCS के बारे में अभी मैं कुछ नहीं कह सकता हूँ. You never know when it's gonna come, so you're gonna be always prepared for that, right? You prepare for UPSC, and Punjab PCS consists of the Punjab component. You can do that when paper is announced. That is not that much difficult, right? So best of luck and take care. Bye bye. We will see each other now on Monday at 9 a.m. Till then, enjoy your weekend, study hard, and don't party hard, right? Chaliye, bye bye.